The tent smelled of cedar smoke and warmed oils. Its interior was lavishly appointed, a low sleeping pallet draped with gauze, velvet cushions piled against carved wood, tapestries that told unfamiliar histories. Lamps swung gently from the poles and cast the scene in honeyed light. Beyond the flap, a horse neighed once, distant and steady. I shivered despite the warmth. I was naked and suddenly aware of how exposed I felt, not just physically, but somehow to the future itself. She stood before me, young, radiantly composed, dressed in a long patterned skirt and a sleeveless embroidered jacket. Her hair fell like a dark waterfall to her waist. Metal dangled from her ears and wrists, catching the lamp glow. Her eyes were calm and sure. When she smiled, it was like a benediction. "You are Kasha," she said in a language that felt strange and immediate. Somehow, I understood every word. "You are chosen. This will not be easy, but you will not go alone. Learn well. Be brave." She stepped closer and embraced me, a quick, firm kiss on the cheek. Her touch steadied the tremor inside me. "Now we begin." With that, she opened a trunk and began to dress me as if following a careful, practiced choreography. A linen underskirt was wrapped and fastened, a gauzy outer skirt followed. Sandals were slipped on and rings looped around my toes. Tiny bells at my ankles chimed softly with each small step. A pink blouse, loose and airy, covered my shoulders, then a short velvet jacket, snug at the waist. "There is a place for everything," she murmured as she worked. "Don't worry about what is yet to come. Al said we'll see to the rest." Her hands moved with a rhythm that calmed me. She replaced the small hoops I'd had in my ears with longer, silver earrings. Bangles were stacked on my wrists and rings slid onto my fingers. The uncomfortable knot in my chest loosened. When she took up a small brush and a pot of ochre, the ritual became more intimate. She painted my lips a deep red and dusted warmth onto my cheeks. With a slender brush she traced kohl along my eyelids and shaded my brows with delicate strokes. "We will leave the hair for later," she said, running her fingers through my dark waves. "Keep it clean. Keep yourself clean. You must be worthy of being chosen." She took my hand and led me to a mirror hung on the tent pole. For the first time in a long while, I studied my reflection. Two figures looked back, one taller, one slightly more delicate, dressed in the same fine cloth and ornaments. The resemblance was startling. In the glass we could have been sisters. "See," she breathed. "We could be sisters. You are beautiful." I felt the words as a promise and as a weight. Outside the tent a small crowd had gathered. The old man with the gray beard, Al-Kamar, stepped forward. He was thin, but his carriage was steady and commanding. He surveyed me, touching my shoulder, pressing once into the spine as if checking the backbone of my resolve. Then he nodded to the assembled people. "Good," he said. "Very good. Kasha, you have been chosen to carry our hope. You have seen the wrongs done to our people. You have seen the lines of captives and the cruelty they endure. It is on you to change this. Dedicate yourself. Learn from your teachers. Listen to Sari. Your success, even your life, depends on it." His voice held no melodrama, only a granite seriousness that made the air in my lungs thin. I swallowed hard and answered as best I could. The ritual completed, I was led out, not into battle, not yet, but into the beginning of a story that would demand everything I had. My stomach was still tight from the ritual, but I forced my voice steady. "I must dedicate my life to the task," I said. "I must learn from my teachers, because my success, and my life, will depend on it. I must pay attention and learn my skills well. Sari will teach me wisdom, and I will heed her guidance. I'll do this for our people, and I will succeed, because the one above will guide me." Al-Kamar smiled, proud and solemn. "Good. Very good, Kasha." He turned toward the crowd. "It is begun. Remember Kasha in your prayers from this day forward." The villagers bowed their heads before drifting back to their tents. Sari squeezed my hand and whispered, "You are wonderful. He's proud of you." Then she slipped away, leaving me alone with my racing thoughts. I wandered beyond the camp, climbing the nearest ridge. The night air smelled of red dust and wood smoke. My bracelets and anklets chimed softly with each step. The skirts brushed against my legs as the twin suns sank behind the distant mountains. I stood at the crest and watched their dying light fade, the horizon painted crimson and gold. Somewhere deep inside me, something shifted, half awe, half dread. The land here is strong, strong beneath my feet, it feeds on the blood, it feeds on the heat. Peter Gabriel, The Rhythm of the Heat. Officially, my workplace was called the Saguaro Biomedical Research Facility, though no one ever used that name. It appeared on no maps, had no signage, and wasn't on any letterhead. Among insiders it was simply the facility, or more commonly, the installation. If anyone outside the project ever asked, we were instructed to say we did medical research. The lie was easy enough to maintain. The only road in was a 20-mile dirt trail from the highway, and anyone foolish enough to follow it would meet armed MPs long before reaching the gates. Someone in the Pentagon had christened our work the Pandora Project, a poetic warning about opening boxes better left sealed. None of us used that name either. I came here with a PhD in high-energy physics from Stanford, my doctoral work at CERN under Carlo Rubbia's team. Later I taught at UCLA before being recruited for this top-secret program. Shannon, my research partner, held a doctorate in biophysics from the University of Genoa. Out of 1,000 applicants, only the two of us were chosen. Even so, much of the physics behind the project still lay beyond my grasp. The basics, yes, but the whole mechanism felt half science, half mystery. The giant cube at the heart of the lab, our so-called icebox, was designed to block every form of radiation that could distort our results. 8 superconducting magnets surrounded it, synchronized in a precise oscillating pattern to create one of the most powerful magnetic fields ever produced. Each tower's ceramic core was cooled by liquid oxygen until, at -230 degrees Celsius, it became a superconductor. Above our twin experiment chairs hung metallic domes studded with crystal-like cones, Briggs field generators, tuned to focus directly on the hypothalamus, the brain's so-called seat of consciousness. The domes contained no wires, they drew energy purely by inductance from the surrounding electromagnetic storm. When active, they glowed with a heat exceeding 1,000 degrees Celsius, yet were sealed inside an almost indestructible insulator, a material the engineers nicknamed adamantine, after the mythical unbreakable stone. During orientation week, a technician had shown off a thin sheet of the stuff. He blasted it with a blowtorch for a full minute, then handed it to me. It was barely warm. He dropped it to the concrete floor, slammed it with a sledgehammer, and held it up again. Not a scratch. NASA would lose their minds if they saw this, he said, grinning. But they won't, not until we decide they should. He also took us through the data processing hall, rows of machines humming like a heartbeat. Each held 32 circuit boards, and each board carried 64,000 parallel processors. That was over 2 million per machine, and there were 64 identical machines. 128 million processors, the tech said proudly. Hot swappable, too. Pull one board out, the others take over instantly. Combined throughput? 300 terabytes per second. Enough to absorb the entire internet in under a second. He said it like a boast, but all I could think of was the name on the project brief, Pandora. I tell you, the technician said bluntly, his grin half smirk, half warning, the data processing gurus at the NSA would give anything to get inside this place. You know that line about it taking 1,000,000 years for the fastest computer on Earth to crack top-grade encryption? Well, these machines could do it in a week. Maybe 10 days. If we want to know what you're typing, we'll know. His words stuck with me. The principle behind the Briggs field came from an obscure corner of physics called M-brain theory, itself a descendant of string theory. In simplest terms, it claimed the universe wasn't merely 4-dimensional but 11, a blend of the spacetime we know plus 7 compact dimensions curled up so tightly that we can't perceive them. In that hidden geometry, multiple realities supposedly coexist, separated from our own by ultra-thin membranes of folded spacetime. At first it sounded like pure math, a way to iron out paradoxes. Then came super-membrane theory, merging membrane physics with knot theory, the mathematics of entanglement. It proposed that these hidden layers might actually be linked, and, under extreme conditions, passable. The image our lead physicist used was simple: picture the universe as a flat sheet of paper, he said. If you walk from one corner to the opposite, that's normal travel. But if you fold the paper so those corners touch, you can just step across. What if higher dimensions let us do that, not with space, but with consciousness? That was the idea behind the Briggs field, to bend perception, allowing the mind to hop across unseen folds of reality. The experiment. Shannon and I had been chosen not only for our physics backgrounds, but for another reason: we'd both scored unusually high on the Stratton-Enfield psi test, a measure of intuitive or extrasensory awareness. The experiment's early phase was straightforward, if you could call anything about it straightforward. Our consciousness would be projected into n-space, the black void between dimensional frames. Once there, using whatever sensitivity our minds possessed, we were to locate each other and make contact. If successful, our thoughts would merge, two brains sharing the same spacetime coordinates. We would experience one another's memories, feelings, and perceptions simultaneously. That was the short-term goal. The ultimate ambition, though, was far bolder and darker. The project hoped that one day a dimensional traveler could reach not just another participant, but any human mind on Earth. Enter it. Influence it. Control it. That was when I stopped believing this was medical research. The fences, the guards, the secrecy, everything pointed to something else. This was no hospital of science. It was a weapon being built behind closed doors. Contact. The theory is sound, Scott had told us on our first day. The machinery will work. But in the end, it all depends on you too. Nobody's ever gone this far before. You'll have to figure it out inside n-space. If you can make contact, if you can really merge, you'll make history. It all depends on you. The words echoed later that night when I jolted awake again. 2:17 a.m. same as before. My head spun. Images lingered, the twin suns, red giant and white dwarf, sinking behind the mountain ridge. Shannon had mentioned two suns in her dream as well. Coincidence? Or something else? I pressed my palms into my eyes. What is happening to me? Every detail of the dream burned sharp and real, the smell of dust, the woman's voice, the warmth of the tent. I could still feel it on my skin. I got up, drank from the tap until the dizziness faded, then crawled back into bed. The taste of fear stayed with me long after I closed my eyes. The next morning. By sunrise, Shannon and I were back under fluorescent lights, being tested by Dr. Chandra. We ran on treadmills, blew into sensors, endured a dozen scans and countless blood draws. By 11 o'clock I felt like I'd been dismantled and rebuilt. When it was finally over, Chandra motioned for us to follow. Come, he said in his clipped accent. We must discuss your EEG traces from yesterday. In the conference room, Scott and several section leaders waited. The doctor spread a paper roll of brainwave graphs across the long table, the black lines jagged and uneven. Before we could ask, Scott said, we're scheduling another run tomorrow morning. Shannon and I exchanged looks. I know yesterday shook you up, he continued quickly, but the doctors cleared you both. There's no physical anomaly, nothing measurable. If anything strange happens again, we'll be ready for it. Any objections? None of us spoke. Good. Doctor? Chandra stepped forward and tapped a finger against a set of sharp spikes on the chart. His eyes gleamed behind his glasses. Look here, he said. What do you see? I frowned. Those tall spikes, what are they? Exactly, he said, almost triumphant. That's the question, isn't it? That's what I just asked you, I muttered, rubbing my temples. My body still ached from the morning's tests, and Scott's latest announcement hadn't helped my patience. Chandra adjusted his glasses and leaned over the paper roll. Well, he said, quieter now, the truth is, I don't know. But notice how regular these spikes are. Exactly every 2.27 seconds. I've checked the monitoring systems, replaced every sensor, even verified the shielding. Nothing in the facility operates on that frequency. Nothing. Not static discharge, not the magnet controllers, not even the cryo pumps. No system produces a pulse like this. He paused, his voice dropping to a low excitement. But there's more. With a little theatrical flair, he produced a second EG chart, flicking it across the table so it unrolled beside the first. This one, he said, is Shannon's. Look. We all leaned in. For a few seconds, no one spoke. Then Shannon whispered, "My God, they're in sync." I nodded slowly. They sure are. Could we be actually making contact? She asked, eyes bright. Maybe we did link, but we weren't aware of it consciously? I frowned. I don't know. But those spikes, they're nearly identical. Exactly. Chandra said, practically vibrating with excitement. They're synchronized to within hundredths of a second, the limit of our current resolution. I'd like to order a more advanced EG system. He looked at Scott with hopeful eyes. Scott sighed, running a hand over his face. After a pause, he nodded. Fine. Do it. Get me a purchase order within the hour. I'll make sure it's here tonight. Have it installed and shielded before tomorrow's run. Chandra lit up. Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Miller. Scott gave a dry grin. Nice having unlimited funding, huh? Which reminds me, Doc, I'm heading to DC next week for a Pentagon review. Mind if I take these graphs along as proof we're making progress? The next morning. No dreams that night. For the first time in weeks, I woke rested, clear-headed, and strangely optimistic. I ran my usual route before sunrise, the air crisp, my pulse steady. After a shower and a solid breakfast, I made my way to the lab. By 8:45, Shannon and I were back in the cube. Chandra stood ready beside his new machine, a polished, high-resolution EG array, its wires snaking across the floor. Then, almost sheepishly, he reached into his briefcase. I would like you to wear these, he said, blushing furiously. In his hands, 2 aluminum foil caps shaped like old-fashioned beanies. I burst out laughing. You're kidding, right? What's next? Aliens reading my thoughts. Doc, this isn't Roswell. Shannon giggled, covering her mouth. Please. Chandra pleaded, flustered but earnest. It's serious. The EEG sensors may still be vulnerable to static interference. These caps, properly grounded, will block that noise. The Briggs field will pass through unaffected. I checked with the theoretical division myself. Still chuckling, I relented. All right. Let's keep the aliens happy. He placed the foil cap carefully over my sensors, then did the same for Shannon, grounding both with copper leads clipped to the dais.